Thank you very much for agreeing to talk to us about a very exciting project. It's your second classical album, and we're giving it its first ever play on Classic FM on Saturday. I mean, do you still get that same sense of anticipation now when music you're involved with has its debut or has its first play, as you always have?
I think it's always exciting to hear your music on the radio. I mean, even hearing old stuff on the radio is exciting, I think. It just sort of... there's a bit of a buzz in it, but certainly when the first time something new is played, obviously, is a special moment.
And what about this particular project? I mean, how do you feel about, it's your second classical album, something people perhaps wouldn't ordinarily associate you with. Does that change things slightly?
Well, I think the second time round, you have a chance of, I learnt a lot doing it the first time because I was quite sort of green to the whole way that classical music was recorded and everything. And this time I was much better prepared. And so, I feel more confident. I felt much more confident going into the project. And I actually feel more confident with the result as well. The last one was, I think, had some, really good moments on it, but perhaps was a little inconsistent. And I feel this project is much more consistent all the way through.
And is that the reason that you thought now is the right time to release this album? How long has it been in the making?
Well, I mean, I sort of started doing this on Genesis, did a sort of final tour about 3 or 4 years ago, and really I sort of had in the back of my mind to do this since then, and and it's taken this long for it to come out. Really, the actual writing process didn't take so long. It's just everything else, getting the orchestra together and all the people I wanted to be honest and stuff, takes time. But so it's been something I've wanted to do ever since I did the first one, really. And
tell us a bit more about the content. I mean, what are the details? What can people look forward to?
Well, it's in the sense it's an orchestral suite, I suppose, like the last piece was, but it has 2 tracks on it that are both led by solo instruments. One which is led by the alto saxophone, played by Martin Robertson, who's an accomplished player in England, and then a violin-led piece, which is played by Charlie Siem, who's a sort of definitely up-and-coming kind of violinist at the moment, very exciting player, I think. And these 2 pieces, I think, do make it sort of quite different from the previous record, which was all orchestral. So, it's a bit of a branch out for me, but I think, in fact, those 2 pieces have worked out pretty successfully, so I'm very pleased with that.
And had you met Charlie and Martin before? Were they people that you wanted to work with?
Well, I'm embarrassed to say that I've known Martin since he was about 6 years old. His mother was a close friend of mine, and I've known him all his life, and obviously we get on, we're close friends as well. And, it's always been there as a possibility, really, as he's sort of grown in stature in the classical world and everything, that I might do something with him. And he has played on a couple of things I've done in the past, which, on solo albums and things, but only little bits, whereas this is, definitely a sort of, 8-9 minute piece that features him very extensively. Charlie had not met before. No, he was recommended to me by a few people, and I listened to what he'd done and everything, and I was very impressed. And I just thought he'd be an exciting person to have, someone who's, definitely on the up. It's quite sort of, rather than perhaps having someone who's totally established or whatever. He's a very exciting player, and I think he does a great job.
And finally, how involved were you in the recording process? I understand that some of it took place in Prague. Is it very important for you to always be there at those moments, or do you feel as a composer you need to sort of let go and then let the orchestra take over?
Well, no, it's quite important for me to be there, really, because a certain amount of the sort of, the final stages of composition, if you like, and certainly of arrangement, take place in the studio as you sort of thrash out the ideas. That when you first hear it back, there's always a few things you want to change. And if you're there at the time, you can sort of fiddle about and do this and do that, and if a chord's sort of gone a bit astray or some note's not quite working, and it's just another pair of ears, if you like, that's there to judge whether the performance is any good or not. I've always been, with everything I've done over the years, I've always been a sort of co-producer, if you like, of what I've done, because I know how I want a thing to sound, even if I don't know technically how to get there. So it's important for me to be there.